Alrighty, welcome to 7.4, the last key issue in Chapter 4. So this is culmination of ethnicities that we've been talking about, but this is a very downer of a section. So in 7.1 we talked about ethnicity. 7.2 we talked about racism and examples of that. 7.3 we talked about kind of conflicts that come about because of ethnicities. In 7.4, we're going to talk about ethnic cleansing. So this is, if you look at it, ethnic cleansing is like ethnic conflict to the extreme. So 7.4, what is ethnic cleansing? And we're going to go through some examples of ethnic cleansing throughout history, even some of our modern day. This is very like I said, is a downer of a section because this is the extreme when we come to person A treating person B terribly and group A treating group B terribly as well. So, so first term, ethnic cleansing. So this is the UN definition, the United Nations, so the government of the world. So a purposeful policy designated by one ethnic or religious group to remove by violent and terror-inspiring means the civilian population of another ethnic or religious group from a certain geographic area. So there's some key words in here. So first off, it's one group removing another, but see this there says terror-inspiring means. So with terrorism, which we'll talk about in the next chapter, you're trying to scare people. So you're trying to scare people here with ethnic cleansing, and you're trying to get rid of the civilian population. So this is not a war. This is not like trying to get rid of a government per se. This is getting rid of normal everyday people. So you're trying to remove these people from a geographic area. So ethnic cleansing could be physical removal, but we see that in a little bit here, ethnic cleansing on the extreme case could be like the killing, a mass killing of people. So keep in mind here, not to control, but to remove. That's a key. So we've talked about Serbia and Kosovo. We did the Europe map, but this Time magazine picture, which is a pretty disturbing picture, this is from the early 90s. So the Serbians, after Yugoslavia breaks up, they actually made concentration camps for Muslims. So you can see pictures here. After this came out, the world kind of paid attention, obviously, a little bit more, but Serbia wasn't exactly nice in that aspect. So next term, extreme ethnic cleansing can end in genocide. So genocide is the mass killing of a group of people in an attempt to eliminate them from existence. So remember, ethnic cleansing is trying to move a group or get rid of a group. Genocide is doing ethnic cleansing by a mass killing. So this is as bad as you can get right here. And this is a crazy map when you think about it. So this is just 1900 to 2005. So it's actually missing the last 10, 14 years ish. So all of these circles. So these specifically are genocides, and look at the number of people estimated to be killed here. So it's like I said, it's bad. You see concentration. You have a lot in Africa, but you have a lot in Asia as well. So remember, this is one ethnic group probably mass killing of another ethnic group. So we'll talk about. So here in Germany, we're going to talk about the Holocaust a little bit here, one of the worst genocides in all of history. But as you can see, it has happened in many places in the world. So currently what we're seeing in the world, so technically, if you're looking at what Syria is doing, that's more terrorism with ISIS. But there have been little examples of genocide there, especially in Nigeria with the 2 million. Boko Haram is another terrorist group, and they've been looked at as conducting examples of genocide as well. So let's go over some more specific examples throughout history. So Europe, largest forced migration, all of history is 1939, 1945. That's the Holocaust. So that is World War I as well. So Jews, Gypsies, and others forcibly removed by the Nazis. And I don't think this has come up this year, but the swastika is actually a Hindu symbol. This is the one on top is the Hindu specific one. and it actually goes back to the Aryans, who were the first settlers of India, or one of the first. I'm sorry, one of the first people going to India, and then Hitler adopts that because the Hinduism symbol is supposed to mean like tranquility, happiness, calmness, and now, unfortunately for that Hindu symbol, we see the swastika on the bottom here, and that's not calmness and happiness, right? We don't think about that at all. But to kind of look at this from an ethnic cleansing and a genocide point of view, Hitler's message was anyone not like us doesn't deserve to live. So that's why Jews, Gypsies, and anyone else unlike him, he exterminated them. So this would be an example of genocide as well. So ethnic cleansing through genocide. So he killed millions and millions. And still to this day, we don't have an exact number of people that were killed in the Holocaust, but it's a very disturbing number. So, still in Europe here, the former Yugoslavia. So this goes to that Time magazine cover that we were looking at a couple slides ago. So Yugoslavia used to be what we call multi-ethnic. So there was a lot of ethnicities mixed up within Yugoslavia. So after World War I, all of this colored area here was one country called Yugoslavia, which would have made the map quiz much easier, right? Now, Yugoslavia breaks up. So a bunch of different ethnic groups, and you can see the different colors represent ethnic groups, they got in various conflicts throughout the years. So in the early 90s, Yugoslavia breaks up. So countries just one after another kind of start declaring independence, and then they have border disputes. So for example, again, one that we talked about in our Euro map, so here's Serbia, and here's Kosovo. So remember, Kosovo is officially part of Serbia, but as you can see from the different ethnic groups, the Kosovars are a very different ethnic group from the Serbs. So that's why they feel like they should have their own country called Kosovo. So Bosnia and Herzegovina were actually two different ethnic groups, and then they formed one country, hence the Bosnia and Herzegovina part. But that's just an example of how something where a bunch of different ethnic groups might come into conflict and break down into other countries. So we have a word for that. It is called balkanization. So balkanization is the process where a country or a state breaks down through those conflicts amongst ethnicities, and then they're going to have different countries. That word comes from this peninsula. This peninsula is called the Balkan Peninsula, which some of you may have heard of. And that's kind of an infamous thing to be known for. So the conflicts between the ethnicities were so bad in Yugoslavia, they literally named this process after the Yugoslavia breakup. So any country in the world that now breaks up due to ethnic conflicts, we call that balkanization. So you've been balkanized would be the end result. So to go into some more specific examples of Serbia, Kosovo, balkanization, and then ethnic cleansing and almost genocide by one group. Let's talk about the Serbs and the Kosovars. So ethnic cleansing is systematic, and there's really 4 steps. So as you look back in history on examples of ethnic cleansing, we've seen that these ethnic cleansers go through 4 very, very, very deliberate steps. So first they move into an area. So they will go into a village, go into a city. So usually this is with military or some type of forceful kind of moving in. Then they will round up the ethnic group that they do not like or are trying to get rid of. So they then will force them to leave, and they will then destroy the entire city. So because of this, the people really have no way to come back. And many times in some of the more brutal ethnic cleansing examples, people will kill the men so that they cannot fight back at all. It's just the women and the children left. So it's not good. So what happened in the early 90s is the United Nations, United States, some other leaders in the world, some democratic leaders, they went into Serbia and they realized that they were ethnically cleansing or attempting to ethnically cleanse the Kosovars. So the Serbs kept denying this. They were like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We know what you're talking about. We're getting along fine, even though, we don't always agree. We're okay. So a satellite picture came out. So this is a village in Kosovo, and after we showed the Serbs this, they were like, oh, okay, so we're sorry, we'll stop. So as you can see, this is pretty well labeled. So IDPs, if you remember those back from Unit 2, internally displaced persons. So those are people that are in their own country, but they're in essence like refugees. So they cannot go back to their homes. So this is all of those people grouped here. These are their vehicles. So this is in the roundup stage, and you can see these armored vehicles. That's how they've already moved in. So luckily for this village in Kosovo, they didn't get to this forced to leave part before that it was proven that the Serbs were actually trying to do this. So super disturbing to see a real life kind of satellite picture of this ethnic cleansing in the process. Now we're going to go to Africa. So Africa has had quite a few problems when it comes to ethnic cleansing over the years. And if we remember, the boundaries in Africa were drawn by the Europeans. This is a wild map. So all of these red boundaries are different ethnic groups within Africa. So imagine that map quiz. And then the white boundaries are the ones mostly drawn by the Europeans, and that current day still look like that. So as you can blatantly see here, the boundaries don't follow the ethnic groups. And in fact, many times you can see, like Nigeria and Algeria, it actually crosses between ethnic groups, which can't be good either. So since the Europeans left, and then all these countries are getting independence in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, there's been conflict between the ethnic groups, because the ethnic groups don't want to listen to each other, nor can a lot of them talk to each other, because remember, they speak different languages. Some East African places here do speak the lingua franca of Swahili, but not everyone does. So you can see how this could result in many, many ethnic conflicts. So the colonization itself is really what to blame for a lot of these conflicts. And the problem is, now how do you fix it? Because these countries are already recognized by the United Nations. We have different groups trying to run them, so it's a problem. I mentioned in a couple classes, Somalia is an impressive mess. Each of these ethnic groups, almost each of them, think that they run the country. So they don't have a stable central government like we have in Washington, D.C. And everyone's like, oh yeah, D.C. is the capital. You know, we have lawmakers, Congress, you know, we do all that. But Somalia, not so much. They don't have one strong central government. So thanks, European colonization. Thanks. So a couple examples within here. Sudan. So Sudan is been in conflict for a long time. So what you have is you've had civil wars, and it's split up in ethnic groups. So the northern part up here, you have what we would call Arab Muslims. That would be the ethnic group. They're from kind of like the Egypt, Saudi Arabia, you know, area, the North Africa, Middle East, and they've settled in North Sudan. Now, in the south, you have Christians and animists down here. If you remember animists, they're the ones that everything has a soul. And then Christian missionaries, as they came in, they had a lasting effect in South Sudan. In the west, this is called the Darfur region. This is an ethnic group called Black Muslims. So race, black, but then if you look at the religion, they're Muslim. Now, these Black Muslims do not necessarily agree with the Arab Muslims. So even though they're the same religion, there's still conflict between them. So all these groups now, they want to control Sudan. And there's fighting there on a regular basis. The Darfur region, you may have heard of that, one of the most violent regions ever. Genocide, ethnic cleansing. This is not many pictures I could put up on here, but there is some disturbing pictures from that Darfur region in the last couple decades. Now the East, various ethnicities, but there's oil. So some of you are already catching on. You can tell everyone then wants this eastern portion, so they can have access to that oil. So Sudan has been a mess for a good while, and if you look here, Eritrea and then Ethiopia, they're going to have some spillover from this as well. I mean, along with Chad and Libya, Egypt, Central African Republic, DRC, they all will. So not a good situation. And some of you might be thinking, because you did just do your Africa map quiz, South Sudan actually got their independence July 9th, 2011, the youngest country in the world. So they just decided to break away and get their own sovereignty because they were tired of the civil war. And I mentioned in some of these classes, in some of your classes too, that Sudan doesn't even really recognize South Sudan as a country. So to them, they're really still all the same country. So someone kind of needs to clue them in. So Central Africa, there's been other issues as well, so not just Sudan. So Rwanda has one of the worst genocides and ethnic cleansing in all of history. This is in the early 90s. If any of you have seen the movie Hotel Rwanda or heard of it, it actually documents this. So this map, look at all these ethnicities. Whew. So this is in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Rwanda is here. So in Rwanda, what's happening is there's a conflict between the Hutu and the Tutsi, two specific ethnic groups. And those two ethnic groups have been fighting for a long time. And neither of them are really like right or wrong. There's been genocides and ethnic cleansing from both ends, the Hutu and the Tutsi, and they, blame each other. But the refugees from Rwanda have spilled into neighboring countries. A lot of them have spilled into the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And again, as you can see, people from this country spilling into here are going to be a problem because they already have ethnic conflicts here. So if you remember from the migration unit, when people migrate, especially refugees from Africa, they don't have the means to get off of the continent. So a lot of times they spill into other countries and create more problems. So the DRC has fallen into civil war because of these ethnic groups, but also other people spilling into their country from neighboring countries. So another section that wasn't real long, but very key examples in here. And again, sorry, not exactly the most uplifting key issue, but it is important to understand ethnic cleansing and genocide. So hopefully, as we understand those events, they will not happen again in human history. So that's it for Chapter 7. Now remember, Chapter 8 is also going to be part of Unit 4, so I will see you in 8.1 after the winter break.